What's the fastest way you've seen someone FCK up their life? There was one young woman. Initially she was pulled over for speeding. Which isn't all that bad, just a traffic citation. Then the officers noticed she was drunk. Still not terrible as it was misdemeanor DUI, but you still end up spending the night in the tank. As she's being arrested she resists, and during the struggle she kicks one deputy in the face, which ended up blinding him in one eye because she happened to be wearing high heels. She went from a simple speeding ticket to a DUI to felony assault in the space of about 30 minutes. My sister shot a cop 5 times after he pulled her over for suspected drunk driving. She was in a stolen vehicle, in possession of stolen guns, and in possession of drugs. Her sentencing is in January and the DA hopes to get her at least 100 years. Guy I went to school with about 10 years ago set his house on fire for insurance money with the intention of getting out his stepfather, but mercy killing his own mother who had terminal cancer. It was idiotic at best and evil at worst. The problem was his stepdad never got out and he died too. And the cops could tell it was him because he had gasoline burns on his hands. So since he was 16 when he did, he got double involuntary manslaughter and won't be released until he's 35. Mercy killing his own mother who had terminal cancer. I know cancer is really f***ing awful, but being burned alive doesn't seem like much of a mercy killing to me. Edit. I realize that she was more likely to die of smoke inhalation from the fire, but it's still hardly a mercy. Cousin started using heroin. 7 months later he died from OD. Had a guy get busted for drinking and driving during his first month at his new base, Air Force. He was a brand new airman and his leadership spun the story that he was young, learned his lesson, etc and managed to let him stay in. He lost a stripe and got paperwork but could continue his career. No less than a month later, he gets another DUI. Bam. Career over. Out of the Air Force. No chance to ever rejoin. Oh. And a bit of jail time and a suspended driver's license. So what do you think he does? He goes to a party, gets shitty-faced drunk, grabs his keys and tries to drive home without a license. Cops catch him. Third DUI within just a few months period. With a suspended license, resulting in several months in jail and basically no chance of employment. Not as bad as some of the stories here, but it was pretty crazy to see someone's brand new career fall to pieces so fast. Even with good leadership. Happened in Tuscan. Not wearing a helmet when doing BMX tricks. He was doing a grind down a handrail and went over the outside of the rail from about 15 stairs up and landed on his head. Now he can't speak correctly, can't focus, and he gets mad easily and often. Brain injuries are terrifying, and doing things like wearing a helmet when biking or wearing your seatbelt when driving are such a no-brainer to me after seeing how it has affected people around me. A freshman at my university posted an anonymous threat on Yik Yak about a month after he started. The threat was something like, "No one go to X building tomorrow at 7 PM tomorrow. You've been warned." He gets arrested that night or the next morning and gets a 10-year sentence for threats and terroristic threats. He wasn't even serious, Ike. He thought it was a joke or didn't want to go to a quiz test that day. I guess he didn't go. So mission sort of accomplished. Went to a rave with some friends the summer after high school. One of my friends was approached by a guy selling ecstasy, and my friend bought like 10 pills off of him. Ever the entrepreneur. He immediately turned around and tried to sell them to someone else. The first person he asked happened to be an undercover cop. My brother has a schizophrenic girlfriend who refuses to take her meds and he thinks he can fix her. He has nothing in his life but her. Can't leave her alone, so she even goes to work with him most of the time. If she doesn't go, she calls him every 30 minutes. The only reason he still has a job is he works for a family member. Bride at my cousin's wedding got caught by groom's father f***ing the best man. She's homeless now. Reputation was destroyed and she got fired for something else. Guy from my high school had a baby girl in his early 20s. The baby was still an infant and wouldn't stop crying. He tried rocking her, but it wasn't working and he got frustrated. I don't know the specifics of what happened, but the baby finally stopped crying, but was unresponsive. Took her to the hospital and they found that she had shaken baby syndrome and the baby later passed away. He lied to police and the doctors about having anything to do with it initially, but later admitted to shaking the baby when he was frustrated. Was found guilty of neglect that resulted in death of a dependent. 30 years in jail. My sister's boyfriend was dared to rob a gas station with a BB gun. He's now doing 8 years for armed robbery. The kicker is they offered him a plea deal that would have given him 4 years jail and then probation and he said no. Was his refusal of the deal part of the original dare or a completely separate one? Crack. He was a decent guy with a lovely wife and a good job in San Francisco. In less than a year he lost the job. His wife left him, and he had to straggle back to Chicago in disgrace, where he kept using for several years. There was a guy I had met at a few parties in my area. We weren't friends, and I can't remember if we even ever talked to each other. Anyway, there was a party in the town over from mine that I decided to skip for some reason. Apparently, the guy that I sort of knew was trashed and wanted to drive home. Someone took his keys. So the dude goes to his car and grabs a huge Bowie style knife. Walks up to the guy who has his keys and sinks the knife into his stomach. Unfortunately the guy died trying to stop someone from possibly killing himself or someone else. I had a roommate come home one day and say I smoked crack today. I think I'm going to start smoking crack. Maybe not the best conscious life choice. In first grade, I was at the first Tiger Cub meeting for kids and parents interested in Cub Scouts. The parents were hearing all the boring details about dues and fundraising, etc. We were playing tag or dodgeball, and one of the kids falls on the gym floor and slides quite a ways. We all thought that was pretty fun, so we all start running and then falling on our stomachs to see how far we slide on the gym floor. One kid was way too close to the wall and slid head first into the wall pretty hard. Parents left with him and went to the emergency room. He was in special ed classes after that. Opioids eventually leading to heroin. I've seen 5 or so, depending on how loosely friend is defined, of my hometown friends go from having the odds inherently set in their favor, wealthy parents, intelligent, athletic, social etc., to becoming junkies. 2 even lost their life entirely earlier this year. Slippery and quick slope to go down. It's awful. Talking to them about their recovery, only to see them relapse. I've gotten better at reaching out to those I know that have struggled, but there's only so much you can do from 1,000 miles away now that I've moved. Here in Utah a few years ago, an immature mother decided to take her daughter's side in a spat her daughter was having with one of her friends. Mom decided to Photoshop a picture of the friend's head onto a photo of a nude woman. Then she proceeded to print out 50 copies and hang them up all over the daughter's school. The police didn't care that the images were fake. They charged her as if she was posting real nude pictures of the girl, of 50 individual felony counts. I wonder if that stupid woman is still in prison. Had a friend back in high school who was nice but kind of a pushover. We went to the same college, but he started drinking too much and transferred to a smaller school back home. One night he got blackout drunk and decided to drive home. He ran over 5 international students that were walking home on the side of the road, including his own roommate. Killed 3 of them instantly and hospitalized 2. He was so drunk he didn't even realize what he'd done. He woke up the next morning to the cops banging down his door. Edit. Yikes, this exploded. And I got the number of deaths wrong initially. Apparently 2 made it out the hospital. And yeah, he was able to mow down all 5 without stopping. He was one of those country boys driving a big ass pickup truck. Happily married guy I knew through work. He was cool. Musician. Who did volunteering for his church. Something just broke in him one day. The office rumor was his wife miscarried with their first kid. Don't know. He takes a liking for prostitutes. Lots of prostitutes. His wife finds out, kicks him out. He ends up staying with a co-worker for a few weeks. Till he gets a paycheck. But rather than sort out his life and get a place of his own, he instead spends it all on 2 high-end escorts who he invites to his co-worker's place. Co-worker not happy. Co-worker's wife very not happy. I had a buddy that was getting put into the back of the cop car. He was getting an underage drinking ticket. Not big of a deal, it was a $200 fine and off your record in a few years. Then he elbowed the cop in the jaw and made him fall to the ground. That f***ed up his life. I was jumped by some guys outside of a bar and was just swinging at whatever I could about a year ago. A cop ran up and grabbed me from behind without ever announcing his presence, and I must have elbowed him in the face 5 times before I realized what was happening. He was completely cool about the entire thing and apologized with a broken nose bleeding all over him. Nicest cop I've ever met, and I still smile and wave every time I see him around town. Actually just sent a Christmas card to the station. I don't normally post, but this just happened a few days ago. My neighbors have been together for a few years and seemed pretty happy. They had 3 kids but didn't marry yet. One day the guy just completely loses it and accuses the girl of cheating. She wasn't, and demands to tell him with who. After some arguing he drops it, then for about a week follows her around, and she finally had enough. About 3 days ago I see him looking pissed and driving his kids somewhere, but I don't think anything of it. Turns out he drove his kids to his grandparents that day, then waited for the girl to show up at the house and they got into an argument. She said she was leaving and he pulled out a gun and shot the ground and said if she leaves he'll kill himself. She turns around and immediately hears a gunshot and a thud. The guy shot himself over nothing. That dude was legit broken in his head. The woman, logically, assumed it was a bluff. But holy shit. Was a bouncer. Have seen guys get in drunken fights and usually did not intervene if they occur off property. Saw 2 guys one night get into a stupid brawl over nonsense and one of them hit the ground. Buddy never woke up. This kid went from having not a major problem in the world to becoming a felon convicted of manslaughter. By far the fastest way I have seen someone FCK up their life. Work at a nursing home. Patient was getting on a nurse's nerves, so she said aloud she'd give the old FCK the wrong meds and laugh while he codes. Patient had a sudden code and MND died the same day. Went from a hateful and insensitive remark that would be a write-up to a formal police investigation for murder. My ex-best friend. She was the first to graduate from college in her family and went on to become an officer in the military. Married her college sweetheart and got stationed at the same place. She cheated on him and they divorced. Got involved with an enlisted guy. Huge no-no. She got disciplined and he got kicked out. Met a new guy and they got married in 6 months. Had a miscarriage. Got really depressed. Got pregnant again. Got even more messed up. She cheated with another enlisted guy while pregnant while hubby was off training. Got an STD. Accused hubby of sexual assault. Come to find out she lived the high life in college off loan money and is now $100k in debt. Hubby divorces her. Fights for custody of their daughter. And she gets kicked out. Stays with the new guy who also got kicked out and is now living in a trailer with 2 kids from 2 different baby daddies on her 3rd marriage before 27. Yeah. I knew a guy in high school I'll call Josh. He was pretty smart. A bit of a troublemaker. And he and I had been in the same classes for years. About a year or 2 after we graduated, Josh went to a college party. At this party, he goes up to a guy sleeping on a couch and bashes his head in with a bat or a pipe. I can't remember. I still have no idea why he did this. But alcohol was involved. He kills the guy and then takes off. Before Josh can be arrested, he kills himself. Even worse. His best friend kills himself about a week later. Another guy I'd known for years. That guy's mom wrote a letter to the local paper explaining that her son had no connection to the killing at that party. Most everyone already knew this. But I can understand her not wanting people to associate her son with a murder. The whole thing was pretty devastating for everyone. So one moment at a party ended 3 lives and devastated countless more. All over something that was probably really stupid. Football star in high school was first string varsity freshman year. He was already being scouted by sophomore year for major D1 colleges. End of junior year he was doing some dumb kid up his shoulder and ended his football career. Football was all this guy had for a future. He didn't have a plan B. 6 months after destroying his shoulder, he was found hanging from the railing at home with a therapy band wrapped around his neck. I grew up with this kid since 2nd grade. He was always a little shfed, but I loved the dude. We weren't great friends at the time of his departure, but we'd spend our entire lives interacting together. And he had a good heart. It was in the local news. Quite a few years ago now. 2 young girls get into an altercation at a party. On a Wednesday. On a school night. Girl A decides that the best way to resolve the conflict is to stab Girl B. All this occurred over a boy. Girl B dies. Girl A sent to jail. Graduation was literally 2 months away. Good game. A large membership church hired a college student to be its youth activities director for the summer. The guy was popular and creative with outdoor programs for teens. Unfortunately for him, he got caught making sexual advances on an underage girl he had been flirting with from the outset. Gambling. My friend's cousin gambled his student loan of you.I 15,000 and lost it. He took out a loan to cover it and lost that gambling too. He had to leave uni as he couldn't pay the fees. He gambled afterwards too and requested the casinos bar him. He now gambles online. Guy I went to school with. We'll call him Jake. Had a full ride to great college football program. He was one of the best athletes I've ever seen. Went to a party and someone told him he'd FCK it up just like his brother did. His brother did FCK up a full ride. To a lesser school though. Jake didn't take kindly to this. Smashed an empty bottle of Jack Daniels over the guy's head, causing serious damage. Lost his full ride. Stayed around my hometown. Died 2 years later in a motorcycle accident. This guy I once went to school with drove drunk with 2 friends in the vehicle. He crashed into a pole and killed both passengers. He's now doing a decade in prison. Hard-working Spanish immigrant supporting his sick mother. 6-figure salary as a broker. Drove a Mercedes. And had money to blow. Got hit with a DWI. License revoked. Job lost and I supervised him for $12 an hour after the dust settled. My now wife started at a top 14 law school in 2013. There was an impromptu party at a local establishment a couple of nights before law classes started. It was very popular. Well, this local establishment was mostly outdoors and was set up in such a way that you had to climb a small flight of stairs from a sidewalk to get to the seating area. We had just left the party and were walking to our car when we saw an ambulance blast past us and to the bar. An incoming student got super drunk and fell off the flight of stairs and hit his head on the sidewalk, causing significant brain damage. He intended to defer for a year but I believe he never came back. Edit. I have been told that this student did come back and pass the bar. So happy update. Dumbest girl at my school posted a picture of herself saying that's 200 less Mexicans trying to cross the border on her story after the earthquake in Mexico City. She got death threats. Kids at my school ran around with Mexican flags. And she ruined her family's life because they had to move. Edit. My school's near Dallas, Texas and she was a junior. The Twitter storm about her snap blew up so much that local Mexican news channels reported on it. Besides, it's 200 fewer. This story still breaks my heart. I have a friend who got a great job in the natural gas industry after graduating from college at 22. He was making loads of money. Smart, charismatic, and overall a good guy. After working for 2 years and saving thousands, he quit that job to become an entrepreneur. He got into bed with a shady salesman and tried selling a very niche product to large businesses without having any previous business experience. His money started to dwindle and he ended up starting to sell drugs to make up for it. Why not go back to work? Who knows? This drug business started to grow and ended up crossing state borders, which brought the FBI into play. Before he knew it, he was arrested. His partner stole all his cash. And he's currently in prison for what may end up being a minimum of 10 years. He's 27 years old. It's awful. Edit.